Thank you, Dr. Joe, for nice welcome message to all of us. Let me just spend just a few minutes to get things started. In the title of this symposium, you see a few keywords. And to me, two important keywords are endangered languages and marginalized languages. And I'll come back to this terms shortly. But to me, these are not two types of languages, but actually two stages of the language shift. But let's get back to the origin of this debate. Michael Krauss, in his now famous 92 article in Language, made a very ominous prediction that 90% of mankind's languages will die out or face death within the next 100 years if we don't do anything. And this prediction was based on several different thoughts that he had at the time. One of his thought was that 100,000 speakers is a safety in numbers limit. So if your language doesn't go beyond this threshold, your language is bound to die. And again, he has several different other thought to come to this conclusion. But we know that numbers don't tell the whole story. And we know that languages are constantly receiving positive and or negative forces altering its future course. And marginalization is such a one of the factors, right? And to visualize this process, we can start with the original healthy state, which may turn into a marginalized state, and which may turn into an endangered state. And if we don't do anything, language will die out, and that's what the Krauss was afraid. However, what he was suggesting, I guess, was with research, documentation, and teaching, we may be able to bring a language to a new healthy state. And in this symposium, we are focusing on marginalization and endangerment phases. We realize that each area, each situation is so different from each other. That's why we wanted to invite people from different parts of Asia, East and Southeast Asia, and just share our experiences and compare our experiences so that we could broaden our perspective a little bit more. And marginalization has two types. One is an institutional marginalization. In this type of marginalization, a language is given a lesser status by the surrounding community, including the national community, intentionally or purposely. And the second type of marginalization is a self-marginalization. In this type of marginalization, speakers themselves are willing to shift to a major language because they want to belong to the majority, influential, and more fashionable group who speaks the majority language. I started to think about this a lot when I read this article by Maya Ravindranath and Abby Cohn. The title of their paper was "Can a language with millions of speakers be endangered?" And the language they're talking about was Javanese. Javanese has 80 million speakers. This is well beyond 100,000 limit that the class was talking about. But they showed that this language may be moving towards endangerment because of this self as old-fashioned, poor, and very slow. like. And self-marginalization is a powerful motivation to produce the symptom of endangerment by limiting the domains of use. So now Japanese is used only at home or maybe some ritual environment, and or other social activity will be conducted by using Bahasa Indonesia, the national language of Indonesia. And institutional and self-marginalization will often go together, and speakers start to regulate their language behaviors to benefit their well-being socially and or psychologically. And let me pause at this point. Can we really criticize, their behavior? Okay, so that's something that I really don't have any answer to it. Okay, so maybe during our discussion, some clarity might come out, hopefully. Okay, so for the second part, I will just very briefly talk about the research and teaching, because these are two other keywords that you see in the title of the symposium. And I have started to think about the role of literacy in revitalization. Of course, literacy has been talked about a lot in the discussion of language revitalization, but I think there's more room to think about this area. So just my random thought. First of all, we shouldn't impose our prescriptism associated with the variety of national language that community members learn. Also, we should treat the written language as a supporting actor for oral language acquisition. And of course, the third point is probably not controversial. We should find a niche for such language activity. Local history, local festival, local food are the areas where local language can express much more richer in a rich way compared to using any other needs. So there are many things that we can talk about. And social media also has been talked about in the literature of revitalization, and I will not say much about this, but maybe during a lunch break, I will show you Facebook, which language are the main Okinawan language, and it has 10,000 members, and consisting of both native speakers and non-native speakers, and they talk about this language, about everything about this language. Okay, some people want to practice the language, some people want to, find the origin of some words and stuff like that. And my final random thought is outsiders help. We need to encourage both insiders and outsiders to mingle on social media. Okay, and the second point is maybe controversial because I know that different groups, different endangered language groups have different opinions about outsiders. But if outsiders receive warm reception when they learn the indigenous language, and then that will give community members some sense of pride. If this can be done, we should take advantage of it. But I know that this is not always the case. And finally, many of us here teach at college, so maybe we can require our students to learn the local language, endangered language, along with the importance of maintaining, many endangered languages. Again, these are my random thoughts, and I'm just throwing these out. so that, when we have discussion, we can come back to for this. And I forgot to do this, but if I may, let me just go back to my first. Maybe I don't have that. Oh, yeah. This is a list of our invited speakers, and I want to take attendance, roll call. Okay, so please raise your hand if I call your name so that people can talk to you during the break or lunchtime. Okay. Okay, so Yanti and Elizabeth Slayton and Seng Hyun Lau and Natalie and William O'Grady and Sejun Yang and Masahiro Yamada and Akiko Yokoyama.
She's
She's still
Bien
sleeping?
pick up now.
Okay.
She's on Zoom.
She's coming. Okay. Yeah, that's why I wanted to take attendance. And Sumitra Saratajan. Okay, and thank you. And also, I want to mention that Randy Lapola was kind enough to be a discussion, and he wanted to come to be with us, but a few things prevented him from coming. But that he will be listening to all the discussions online, and he will join us at the discussion session at the end of tomorrow's session. So I'll introduce him when that time comes. Okay, so thank you very much. I want to introduce the first speaker.